Soonerscoop.com at its finest. Welcome back into the live stream. We can just reset. We had to reset. We had somebody come in and knock us off. I don't know who it was, but
they pulled the plug.
Yeah, not find you.
I thought it was the weather, the anticipated weather Sunday.
That's right.
Is there supposed to be bad weather?
Well, I'm supposed to get it. You're probably familiar with this, getting a couple inches.
I hope they pull the plug now.
Pause.
An average size?
No, I think that we're supposed to get like 3 or 4 inches of snow. So who knows? I mean, I know that Mike Morgan's talking about it, but usually when Mike Morgan talks about something that confidently, the opposite happens. So
yeah,
Brick
bed.
We'll be
brick
watching.
Bread, brick dairy.
I'll be watching the Super Bowl anyways. I'm not going to be out and about.
It's true.
What's your guys' opinion on like big? And we'll get back to the questions here in a second. What's your opinion on like? Oh, we're not.
Yeah, it says up.
Damn.
That was really good.
We definitely are live on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Then we're good.
At least I'm watching us right now.
Okay.
All right.
We're good.
I don't know if it might be private.
No, we're good. I just joined.
I'm being told that we are
watching.
good. I'm being told that we are good. I don't know. Possibly. We'll just continue talking like we are, and hopefully you out there are hearing some of the stuff that we said, because big Super Bowl parties, are you guys in or out on the big Super Bowl party?
I'm in on a big spread of food, kind of out on the big whole Super Bowl party.
Absolutely.
With the people. I like to watch the game. I think.
Yeah, I don't want to be around like a billion people. But if I'm at a home, I think it's different if you go to a bar. If you go to a bar, it doesn't matter how many people are there. You're supposed to be going out to watch a game with a lot of people.
See,
a house party though is a different animal.
I just don't. My thing about watching sports with other people, like I want it to be with people that like also care about the game or like are somewhat knowledgeable about the game. Like I don't want somebody that's just gonna be like, oh, what just happened and what's going on and like all that BS. Like I don't know. I enjoy kind of just watching with like a close group of people and eating a lot of food.
Wings, pizza. Does it matter?
Chips and queso.
Chips and queso.
Or some sort of dip.
Yeah, chips and queso. Well, and I would say that chips and queso is probably your number one dip out there.
Yeah.
Yes.
At least
I don't know, because like I mean, it is your number one dip out there, but for the Super Bowl specifically, though, I feel like it's more of a like one of those 5-layer dip.
Oh
type,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like where you have
Yeah.
like different. Yeah, that.
Believe me, I don't
discriminate. Dips.
Yeah, I don't discriminate against dips.
Yeah.
Like any kind of dip spread is usually pretty good by me. Are we in the old school just French onion dip?
Oh yeah.
I'll eat the whole bowl.
Oh yeah,
I'll eat the whole bowl.
Yeah, it's especially bad. Like I know Joe and I have been watching what we eat, and Sunday's just all bets are off.
All bets are off. I plan on 6,000 calories easily.
Yeah.
Just this Sunday, or is it going to be every Sunday? Is that like an every Sunday thing, I guess? Is what
No,
it's just this Sunday. A special circumstance.
Yeah.
I got
But
you.
I keep having special circumstances and just not dieting. So
It happens. It happens.
But Joe and I play basketball on Sundays, so
we burn lots of calories.
Burn a lot of
making
calories.
room.
Burn the calories, and you're just kind of replenishing, and you got a carb load on Sundays.
exactly.
I think that's the most important thing.
It's a one-day bulk.
Yeah,
is-
that's
you put it that
exactly
way.
right. That's exactly right. And I think that is perfectly acceptable, especially on Super Bowl Sunday. So we shall see. I've also had this like big thing on radio this week. Like, I don't know. I'm not a big commercial guy, but I'm sick of seeing all the new commercials already being thrown out there. I kind of want to be surprised.
Are they? I haven't paid
There's
attention.
been a couple on like you'll go on Twitter or something. It's like the new Super Bowl ad just
like
dropped or whatever.
I think the Paramount Plus was one of them.
That
with
everybody
Tua
was
and
talking
it
about.
was,
Yeah.
it was great
I
commercial.
guess it was a great commercial. I just didn't really. I'm not a big movie guy, so I didn't really understand all the references.
Oh, see, I understood a lot of the references.
I think it kind of takes away the magic of not seeing it live, though. On television.
Yes, no, that's what I was saying. Oh, what they're gonna.
You know how much you ingest on Twitter every day? Oh, that video is really good.
Do you guys have one
I
though
thought you
that
were gonna
like?
say how much you ingest on Super Bowl Sunday, which could be a lot if you don't have to get out onto the roads.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a Super Bowl commercial that you like will never forget? Like there was one that was like
I think the old school, like I think it was GMC or maybe Ford, like the old school commercials, or like the think
Budweiser with the horses,
the horses or
Yeah.
the frogs for Budweiser was another really good one.
The Dilly Dilly, I mean, that lived on for a while.
I completely forgot about
yeah.
that.
Doritos was
Sure.
always big. You always had some good Doritos ones.
I think in a way, like the great commercials probably over. They're probably spending their money advertising other ways.
Yeah.
Which I don't know that for a fact, but that's just actually, I'm just making all that up. I don't have anything to stand on. Maybe that's just something that I just completely made up.
That sounds like a good, there's so many other ways to advertise now, so they're spreading the wealth.
Hopefully there will be a bunch of good dips and spreads when it comes around to football time in Norman. And we're talking tailgates. Jay Parker, back into the Q&A portion of this. Do you see any changes coming to tailgating for next year? Any suggestions being made? I mean, I think that there's
there's a committee
for
tailgating.
Sure. But I was going to say, I think that it's going to be better just because of the opponents, just because of the atmosphere that's going to be around Norman. It is what it is, but I think the Oklahoma fan would tell you that there was a certain level of just non-excitement that came with whoever was coming.
Well, yeah, it's a lot easier to drink a lot of beer and eat a lot of food when Alabama's in town
for a big
versus
game.
When Iowa State comes to town.
I do think, though, that the Lindsey Street stuff hopefully will be moved in, not moved, but hopefully it will be better just in terms of everybody knows about it now. It's going to be talked about for the next couple months going into the season.
Another year under the belt of Lindsey Street, kind of being back, and then, kind of the university feeling out what they need to do. Mm-hmm. Of course, everybody's been very critical, and I mean, rightfully so.
All 4 of the non-conference games before they get into SEC play, wouldn't it be kind of ironically funny if they were all at 11?
It would
the amount of bitching that would go on.
It would,
and I would lead the charge on that. It would be awful.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me. But I do know that OU has a group of people that are looking at improving tailgating. I know Joe Harris has talked to me several times. I remember when they announced the Lindsey Street opening back up, he told me on the record that they were looking at opening even more up in 2024, and I know there's been some discussions at some of the Board of Regents meetings recently about coming up with a plan to present sometime this summer about opening up more places on campus. So we'll see. Sure. I don't think they're going to just open up the South Oval necessarily, but I do think there's some other spots around campus that
economic impact, because I know that we all think that that's going to be much larger than what it's been over the last couple of years, or maybe the last decade. But I wonder what the expected number of people the more people that are going to be coming in to Norman to be.
I think it's, I know,
because I would imagine all the SEC schools that, certainly haven't been through here. I mean, Tennessee came in 2015 or whatever.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that there's going to be a ton of people that are just as excited as the Oklahoma fan that wants to go down to Oxford coming down to Norman.
Yeah. I don't know the exact number that they're expecting more people, but I know that I saw a number somewhere that it was they could make tens of millions of dollars more than what they've been making in recent years. And that's the city of Norman, Campus Corner, the university. They're going to financially make so much more money, going into next year.
Gotcha. Yeah, and also what's going to come of it 2 or 3 years down the line once that influx of money comes into play, with these businesses. I know, Eddie, you've been very vocal about what Campus Corner, needs to do.
Yeah, that's kind of the next. I think that's the next focus after you get to the tailgating stuff.
So you get 6, 7, 8 game days of home with that SEC excitement and that SEC money from visitors, and you start to see businesses start to boom again. And so that's why I think these businesses are really going to benefit, and we might kind of see the surrounding areas around there. And when those surrounding areas get better, tailgating is going to get better. People are going to want to come down to Norman and spend even more. 3 years down the line, we'll see improved tailgating. We'll see improved restaurants. We'll see a lot more amenities from this increased tourism. So
it's certainly a off-field question that is perfect for this time of the year and getting into the summer. Just to, I think that the excitement is only going to build over the next couple months as, Oklahoma makes the official move. But I think that right now, even talking about it, when we were talking about it with Andy the other day on his on the Andy Staples show, I'm so excited about, what this next step is going to be, whatever that may be, to get prepared for the start of the football season. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
And you have them going at what, 3-9 right now? Is that what you're
actually,
not ready to put that out there publicly?
I think I'm higher on OU next year than a lot of other people. I've said I think that they can go 10-2.
Yeah, that's something that you've put in one of the mailbags, right?
Yeah,
mailbag.
You look at the way the schedule's set up, and I think that there's a couple games that can be swing games. You look at Missouri, Ole Miss. Those 2 road games, I think, are huge. Like, if you can go and win both those games, then I think you can win 10 games.
Sure.
I think that they should beat a Tennessee at home. I think they should beat Auburn on the road. Alabama at home, I think, got a lot easier with Nick Saban gone. It's still going to be really tough, but it got a lot easier. And then LSU at the end of the year, that's another game that, like, I know a lot of people have chalked it up as a loss. I don't know. We'll see how good LSU is. I mean, they're replacing the Heisman Trophy winner. That's never easy to do. And, we saw it this last year. I mean, LSU can kind of fall apart, at times. So I think that there's a lot of tougher games, but there's also a lot of games that I think they can win if somebody like Jackson Arnold lives up to the hype that we think he can be.
No doubt. If we want to keep moving along into the Q&A, and I don't think that we necessarily have like a timetable here on how long we're going to stay around. We got interrupted during the power outage here on Campus Quarter. Now think about this.
That wasn't one of my top 10 thoughts.
It certainly was not one of mine, but it just kind of came and popped into my head. So and much like Brittany B popped into a lot of people's lives back in the late 2000s. So that's what we're doing. Yeah, no problem. We're getting the next question. The Q&A, the technological side here has been working very well today.
How much is that due to the Big 12 trying to shut down our stream, though?
Well, I could see that.
We've had 100%. A lot of SEC talk.
Oh, awesome. I could see that being a problem. Connor wants to know, what are the odds we actually get a Toby Keith song during the third, fourth quarter intermission? I think it's something that maybe you look into. And maybe not even maybe. I think
what would the
song
song
be?
Be
very cool. I don't know. Like,
I saw some people say Red Solo Cup, and I like Red Solo Cup,
love
but that
song, love singing it at a bar.
I don't think it's a game day.
It's not a football thing.
I think it needs to be like either courtesy of the red, white, and blue, because that always gets you a little tingly, and then or like, How Do You Like Me Now?
I think those are the two. Well, I think people kind of forget. I think at one point, maybe a game or two, it was the Toby Keith version of Oklahoma Breakdown, which just kind of felt kind of different, not being Stoney LaRue or Mike Hossey, but with Don't Back Down, and then, of course, Alabama, and then some other schools. So I think the sing-along is the way to go, and those 2 songs would work really well.
I think How Do You Like Me Now that's, to me, that may be the candidate, because you could have the whole crowd sing How Do You Like Me Now. Like, that would be good. I don't know. That's the one to me.
It's really hard in my opinion, it's really hard to create something like what Alabama does or what Florida does with the Tom Petty. It's just really hard to recreate that, because I think it was so. I don't even know how they have initially started that, but it's something that has kind of built a legend, hasn't it, as time gone on?
Without a doubt, and I think us, and other fans need to realize that it's going to take some time to catch on, regardless of what song they choose and what they decide to stick with, because those are probably, a little bit different with Dixieland Delight, but I assume Don't Back Down is kind of the same thing. It took a little bit of time for fans to get it. Everybody starts to memorize it. They're singing it from heart, so it's going to take a little time, to get in the groove and get going. So I think time to do it, and I think that'd be a really good way to honor him, because he would love it. Sing it live,
for sure. No doubt about it. It would be really cool. I hope that they do explore something, though, in between that third and fourth quarter. I think that would be a lot of fun. Stacy wants to know, have you all heard what they are doing for Josh H. during the Tennessee game? That, ironically enough, that was something that we had actually talked about with Andy Staples on Monday, just in terms of, it sounds like there is maybe possibly going to be something, George.
I would think so. I know that it's been discussed as like, maybe like a, I don't know about a tribute video. Something like that where, between the first and second quarter, they throw up Josh Heupel's highlights and they're like, "Thank you, Josh." So I would be pretty surprised if there's not something of that caliber for him.
How limited are they that he's the coach coaching in the game? So it's not like, you can bring him on the sideline, show him the screen, and he can wave and smile. So I think something to that nature is definitely in play.
And I think he'll get some sort of standing ovation.
It's kind of one of those, I don't know, like just uncomfortable situations, right?
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be what happened in Chicago with the Bulls this year, where the former GM,
Jerry Krause's widow got booed.
Like, that's not going to happen.
I would hope not.
No.
And certainly something as disgusting as that by the fine people of Chicago. I was very disappointed with that.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, I know.
All because of a Netflix documentary.
Right.
They probably half of those weren't even live.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
That
that
point,
was
so.
it was a celebration of, I believe, like the mid '90s Chicago Bulls teams. But I don't know. It's kind of hard to have those conversations about the or memories or the celebrations with the Chicago Bulls and not have MJ, Scotty, and I think Dennis Rodman was going to try to get there and had some type of weather delay or something. I can't remember. We can do another one. Let's jump back into some Q&A. That was good timing. Eddie, can we play a round of golf at Jimmy this spring, summer? Yeah, absolutely. Let's set it up. DM me. We'll get that done for sure. You got to give me a couple strokes aside, though. That's kind of one of my New Year's resolutions, playing a little bit more golf this summer, and then probably win the Oklahoma Open 2025, summer of 2025. Will one of you two caddy for me?
100%.
No.
You wouldn't caddy for me?
0%. No.
Thank you
got
for
you.
the
I got
thank
you.
you for the immediate response.
I'm watching Jordy Ball right now pitch for Nebraska.
How's that going?
She reached base on her first. She walked, and then she stole second, and then she got thrown out of
They're
third.
already intentionally walking her. Wow.
Interesting.
She's
bad
pitching
day.
now.
Nathan wants to know who's winning the Waste Management Open this weekend. I took Sahith Theegala. Was very, very close to getting it done a year ago. I think he gets it done this year. One of the, stars of the Netflix operation that I believe is starting up next month, the new second season. So I'm excited for it. I love Sahith Theegala. I love a bunch of the young guys out there, but Theegala definitely, he seems like a cool dude.
While we're on golf, Eddie, what do you think of Anthony Kim being back?
It's going to be fun. I hope that it's true. I know that he's been playing a lot out at Oklahoma City Golf Country Club. I think he lives over in Nichols Hills. It would be pretty cool. I would certainly I can't say that I'm somebody that sits down and watches every round of the Live Tour, but if he were to come back, I think much like everybody else in the golf community around the world, would definitely be tuning in just to see what it is, just to see him in the flesh. I think anytime that you see him around town in Oklahoma City or I was downtown. I was over at one of the establishments in downtown not too long ago, a couple months ago, and he walked in and it was like, whoa, that's him.
Yeah. Have you met him? Did you have a relationship with him?
No, I wouldn't say a relationship or anything like that, but I've definitely been at the same locales as him.
Yeah.
I think he's going to headline the Sooner Scoop Open.
If he headlines the Suitor Scoop Open, we will get that thing set up ASAP. We will get it done almost immediately.
That'd be awesome.
We could get a good little contingent of people.
Oh, I think that that's definitely something that we need to look at here over the course of the next couple of weeks, because if we want to get it done during the summer, just need to do some planning purposes and get the word out.
I think we should do it on Tuesday when it's like 105, and whoever survives the 18.
Well, that wouldn't be good for me. That wouldn't be good for my longevity, and I don't know. Friday's always pretty good, but I know that it's really hard to get a golf course on a Friday. That's why most charity tournaments and that kind of stuff are on Mondays and Tuesdays. So I don't know. We need to talk to some people over at Oklahoma City Golf Country Club, see when they want to shut down for a Monday to get us on. Have you had the chicken tenders at Clark Crew Barbecue? I have not.
I've never even heard of Clark's Crew
Oh,
Barbecue.
Clark Crew Barbecue is one of the better barbecue establishments in Oklahoma City. Have you gone, Joe?
It's fantastic.
It's really
I've not
good.
had
Really?
the
Where
chicken
is it?
tenders, though.
Northwest Expressway.
Okay.
Kind of, I guess it would be on the west side of the Parkway there. You got Baptist, and then Clark Crew's on the other side.
I've lived in Oklahoma City for almost a year now on March 1st, and I still feel like I don't know where anything is. Or
You probably don't get up north very often.
No, I don't.
Up to the north side.
We were
of
up
town.
north a couple weeks ago, right?
Where were Hooters.
Oh, Hooters. We made that
Expressway?
establishment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hooters
so
north.
If you would have gone, just continued to go west, you would have run into Clark
Yeah.
Crew down there. It's really good. I would recommend anybody that hasn't taken part, and if you live in Oklahoma City, go by there. It's extremely good. Kyle wants to know, who was the best player you played with in high school?
Well, you played with
I played with Sam.
Sam who?
Sam Bradford was pretty good. He was you might have heard of him, won a Heisman Trophy, #1 pick, no big deal. We also had a bunch of guys that went on and played D1 ball. Deji Kareem, who I grew up with, played middle school ball with as well. He ended up going to Southern Illinois. He was up for the Walter Payton Award while he was up there playing for the Salukis. He's actually played with my cousins up there in a small world type of situation. And then he played for the Jaguars initially and returned to kickoff for a touchdown in a playoff game for the Colts. So
Wow.
we had a really talented team. We had a bunch of guys that went a couple other guys that went D1. Myron McKinney went to Oklahoma State. Kenny Brown went to Texas A&M, and then a host of guys that ended up playing D2 ball other places.
Joe, you have anybody on Sam Bradford's level?
Not quite. 3A Oklahoma football is not quite on that level. We had some young studs, but
We had a guy named Austin Morris at Bishop Kelly. He was really good.
Did he play in college?
No, he had an offer, I think, to Tulsa. Ended up just going OU and not playing football. But I did play. I don't know if this counts. I played a lot of basketball. I played AAU basketball one time.
Won 8 games.
I know. I felt kind of bad for him. He's a good guy. I played against him a lot in high school because he played at Owasso, and he would just drop 50 burgers on us. I remember I would come into the game, and they would purposefully set picks to where I would have to switch on to him, and he would just score on me every single time. And I told my coach, he was getting mad at me. I was like, just take me out. I said, it's very clear what they're trying to do here, coach.
You got 5 fouls. You might as well use them.
Well, trust me, I fouled the shit out of him, but it didn't work. He just was money from the free throw line.
I had a pretty good class growing up. C.J. Henry, who obviously got drafted by the Yankees and then went to Kansas. Xavier was much younger, but I just remember even back in like 7th and 8th grade, C.J. was so like more physically advanced than everybody else.
Yeah,
it was pretty incredible. He's like the first guy that started pulling up from, not the first guy, but I just remember him pulling up like Trey used to do in high school. And it's like, this guy's in 8th grade.
Yeah,
like this is Cooper High School or Cooper Middle School.
So. Donnie Walton, who's on the Mariners now.
Yeah.
Rob
Walton's son.
Yep. He was in high school with me. He was a senior when I was a freshman. So I didn't really play with him, but he was a baller.
Kerry says that he played against Rob Walton. Rob Walton pitch.
Good family friend.
Back in the day.
Walton.
I didn't realize it was that highly drafted. Kerry thinks he got drafted in the first round, 9th pick overall. Baseball has been very, very good from the state of Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Bishop Kelly won a lot of state championships back in the day.
Dallas Keuchel, right?
Yeah.
Dallas Keuchel. And then, I think that the Willits kid's going to be really good. Jackson, his older brother. I'm talking about Eli Willits, is still in high school over at Fort Cobb Broxton. I think he has a really good chance to probably rise up some of the draft boards. So we'll get into a little bit more baseball when the time comes. We're only a week away.
It's kind of crazy how fast it's happening.
I know it's insane to me that OU played 2 softball games today. I mean, for some reason I just never remember it starting this early.
I think it creeps up every year.
February has it always been February 8th?
I feel like it's
or like that
second week of February. It always creeps up, and then I think it kind of is too because they're always away. It's really cold here, and so
it doesn't feel like they're really here until they start, getting over to
until March 1, until they have every fan bring their own shovel to finish.
Rob Walton was a
6th
round draft pick by the Texas Rangers.
I
disregard
in 1982.
It was Kerry's claiming it was a different guy. Yeah. Okay, well, he's a hell of a baseball coach now. Definitely a different person. The Kodiak wants to know, what are the realistic expectations for OU football in 2024? We saw the struggles of the new Big 12 schools. Could OU and Texas see the same kind of slump? I think that it is definitely a little bit different, guys, as far as a Central Florida or a BYU to a certain extent. Houston definitely struggled this year. Cincinnati definitely struggled. I think it's a little bit different, don't you guys?
I do, and I think it's also kind of, too, if they're alluding to the Big 12 schools, I think all those schools are kind of coming down a little bit. Cincinnati had that great run with Luke Fickell and, of course, dealing with the new coach. And so they were kind of coming down a little bit. But I think, that jump from the group of 5 to a Power 5, or now it's a Power 2, but not including Big 12 in that. But I don't think we'll see the same difference. I think OU's, trying to build that team. It is going to be more physical week in, week out, so you're going to see a lot more dings a little bit. So got to stay healthy. But I don't think we're going to see that same kind of slump. What do you think, George?
Yeah, I mean, Look, it's going to be a really tough schedule. Like I said, I think the ceiling is like 10-2, and I think the floor is like 8-4. I know there's some people out there. I think Vegas has them at over under 7.5 maybe for next year. I think they're going to hit the over on that. But look, it is a tougher league, but I don't think that they're all of a sudden going to be like Cincinnati or some of these or UCF, some of these schools that really struggle to get to a bowl game. Like that's not going to happen. I think, and it's different in the sense that like Oklahoma and even Texas, these are like blue blood schools. Like these are schools that you're not talking about, Cincinnati and UCF, they've had, and BYU really, and Houston have had good runs here and there, but they're not blue blood schools.
Sure.
Oklahoma and Texas both finished top 10 in recruiting this year. They're going to have the same talent or close to the same amount of talent as a lot of the schools they face. Other than Alabama and maybe LSU, like OU's still going to be as talented or more talented than everybody they face.
And just for all intents and purposes, you're just talking about the teams that they're playing.
Right.
You're not talking about the Georgia.
Right.
Like
Obviously they
Georgia
don't have as
somebody
much
like that,
talent
obviously.
as Georgia, but
Yeah.
I think that they have as much talent as some of these other schools.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do think that the just week in and week out stuff is I truly don't know how much that affects everything, but I do think when you're playing, what I think is perennially known as a tougher brand of football, it does add up at some point.
I think you kind of see it a little bit with the Big 12 basketball schedule, a little bit. So there might be a little bit more parity in terms of that. But, yeah, I don't think it's week, each week is a new week and it's a week between games. So I don't think you're going to see it to that level. But do you guys think that the offensive line is really the difference? People talk about, is that the difference between this team going 7-5 or 9-3, 10-2? Or if you had, I know it's never that simple.
Sure.
You can't take it down to one position group, but what is the one position group that's going to make the biggest?
If you're talking about all these bullet points that go into a season,
I'm just asking for one. Yeah.
You certainly have to put it up at like 1A or 1B, don't you?
Have to.
Yeah, no, offensive line, look, it's I think it could make or break the season, especially when you consider Jackson Arnold and him kind of having his first year as the starter. Like, you have to be able to, and I think if you protect him, then he's going to. So yeah, offensive line. I think it's also defensive line. Like I know that there's a lot of confidence that the young guys can have an impact, but they have to have an impact. Like a David Stone has to be somebody that plays and does good things on that side of the ball. So because they're gonna have to be able to get after some of these guys and stop the run and all that stuff. It sounds simple, but I do think and I think it is. I think it is simple for Oklahoma. Like I think they feel really good about their receivers. I think they feel really good about their quarterback, running back. I know it was a weird situation this last year. I think they feel good about that. You bring back your linebackers. You bring back almost your entire secondary. Like I think that it has to come down to the offensive line and defensive line.
It's going to be really interesting. Good thing we only got 5 months to be able to talk about it. Not enough time. Nathan wants to know, well, we have a 1,000-yard receiver. I find that to be a very interesting question, fellas. And, I think that one of the biggest talking points on all of that is just because I think that we all feel like the wide receiver room is very deep. Is there enough footballs to go around?
I think it's going to be no for that exact reason. I don't think it's because they're not going to be able to throw the ball efficiently. They're not going to have some guys break out, but will there be a 800, 950 kind of guy? I think so. Maybe that Deion Burks.
What's better? Is it better to have a single 1,000-yard receiver separated with, circled around with a number of other guys, or is it better to have 3 100 yards or 3 800-yard receivers?
3 800, 100%.
Yeah.
There is kind of that psychological point of a quarterback. Oh, if I throw it this way,
sure,
this dude's going to get me 10, 15 yards.
Especially when you get into third down and you're on the road and it's loud and
a new quarterback coming into tough environments. So I do think that's part of it. But I think it's going to be no, just because there is so many guys that have the ability to go out and catch the ball and, score touchdowns. But I think it's going to open up a lot more. So, you kind of see with the different game, but the Chiefs this year, they struggled because the receivers couldn't get open. So they're having the troubles getting Travis Kelce the ball. But if they only had Travis Kelce, but if you had 4 different receivers, if you had Tyreek to take it off, it's a completely different offense. And so not the same, not comparing OU to the Chiefs, but I'm just saying if you have the ability of receivers to take the top off the defense or 3 or 4 guys to catch the ball, I think you're going to see a lot more success than maybe just one guy and then maybe some other just guys.
What do you think, George?
I don't think they'll have one, but if they do, I think it'll either be Nick Anderson or Deion Burks. I think it's going to be one of those 2 guys, and it kind of depends on Jackson Arnold too. Who's going to be his go-to guy. I mean, Drake Stoops ended up being the closest to 1,000 last year, 962, and it was largely because he became Dylan's guy, especially in the back half of the season when Andrew Anthony was hurt. So it's going to be really, really tough. But I do have a trivia question for you guys. What year and who were the 2 guys, the last time OU had 2 1,000-yard receivers in the same year? Who were they and what year was it?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think the immediate thought is
it's kind of obvious, to be honest.
Well, it had to be. Would it have been 20? Lots of dead air. I'm trying to think.
Just start throwing names out there.
Well, it would have been CD and somebody, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
CD in Hollywood?
Yep. In what year?
2017?
2018.
Would have been 2018.
They had,
Tyler,
listen to this, man. They had, Marquise Brown had, wait, where is it? I just had it. Marquise Brown had 1,318 yards and 10 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb had 1,158 yards and 11 touchdowns. I mean, they were unbelievable. The next closest guy was Lee Morris at 457 yards. So they had 2 guys at 1,000. I mean, it was just a 2-man show, basically. I just think that OU has so many guys that, like Joe said, I think that they'll have 3 or 4 guys close to around 800.
Yeah, I mean, you start naming off all the guys that you expect to be some type of
Jaden
contributor. Jaden Gibson.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated when they get into the spring to see where somebody like a Jaquez Petaway ends up in the mix or how he's going to be used.
Even Brennan Thompson, he may only have, let's say, 20 to 30 receptions next year, but he could have 500-something yards, 600 yards in receiving because he's going to be.
If he's just going to get a 3-reception, 80-yard night, but 65 of those came on one play.
Right.
Eddie, do you think they will have a tight end that's over 300 yards this year?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, and I was going to say, in talking about a 1,000-yard receiver, it's going to be interesting to see how they use the tight end position if they're able to just use it. No disrespect to Austin Stogner. I think we've been down this road before. They got to be able to get more out of what they got out of the tight end this past season. And I think that you add in Jake Roberts. It's really interesting to see what the Bauer Sharp kid is going to bring to the program. And then obviously Devon Mitchell.
And Caden Helms.
Helms. And then we haven't even mentioned Cade McIntyre is my man crush. I think I developed that when we went up to Nebraska.
Knock on wood, barring injuries, they're going to have guys. They're going to have depth that they didn't have before. And so, if they don't, I think it's maybe because you have 2 guys that are $150, 200 yards apiece. But it's going to be. I think the Jake Roberts kid is going to be pretty surprising to a lot of people. He's had production at the Division I Power 5 level.
Right.
And so he's coming in and he kind of steadies the ship a little bit with that new guy, Devon Mitchell. I think it's going to be exciting. I'm excited about the tight end room just because of all the guys with the potential.
Yeah, and I think that, when you mention Caden Helms, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that roll their eyes. I don't know if we can judge him just based off of he hasn't had the opportunity to really start his career yet.
I don't think you can judge him, but I think it's fair to have a question mark about his name.
And that's completely fair. I think it's different than having a opinion about him and say it always sucks versus you got to be able to stay on the field at some point.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
So we'll see. And I think he's going to be kind of a different tight end than, the other guys bring to the table. And that's what would be good. Each guy with a little bit more talents. Stogner had to do it all last year. I mean, people forget he was obviously not very effective in the passing game, but he did do a lot of blocking. Sometimes in the perimeter blocks, he struggled a little bit, but he did block pretty well in between the tackles when they asked him. So.
He also played, I think, I looked it up. He played the 3rd most snaps of anyone on the team.
He never left the field because they couldn't put anybody out there.
That's a lot to ask out of anybody.
Oh yeah,
let alone Austin Stogner.
Yeah, I was looking at stats. Just
it was like
quickly.
A build up and then a real gut shot.
Yeah. Braden Willis had 514 receiving yards on 39 receptions in 2022. I think that OU. I don't think they'll have one guy get over 500 next year, but I do think they could have a couple guys get over 300 and get to around 500, 600 yards total from the tight ends.
Needless to say, I think everybody's really excited about everything that is around Jackson Arnold. I think everybody's really excited about Jackson Arnold. It's just it kind of goes all the way back to what is going to be a very, very big year for Oklahoma's offensive line and Bill Beatenbow. I hope Seth Littrell. It just left. I hope Seth Littrell proves a lot of fans wrong. Is there a lot of talk about not being happy with Seth Littrell?
I just think people looked at it and said, "Oh, well, it was the easy hire. Why didn't they go outside?" And I think also people just aren't familiar with how qualified he is for the job. I mean, you and I have talked about it, Eddie. Like, he's more qualified for the job than Jeff Lebby ever was when you look at his background and the amount of places that he's called plays and been a head coach before. Like,
it's hard to change where he's coming from.
Right.
But if you would have put his resume and said, this is the offensive coordinator from, I don't even care, whatever school, he's coming in from somewhere else, would that tone be different?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Just it being an outside hire. I think if you even had half the resume, if somebody outside hired, there's just a little bit more excitement. But people forget that he got fired a year. He took his team to the conference championship game. Yes, they were like 7-5, but he got fired after that year at North Texas. And that was as a head coach, but he's been a very effective coordinator at a lot of different schools. And of course, I think he knows the roster. And I know George and you've made this point a lot.
I would have done something different there. And who knows what those conversations were like behind closed doors.
And he's going to install a new offense, of course, and the terminology is going to be different, but there is something that he can kind of merge the terminology a little bit. So the learning curve is going to be a little bit easier for all the guys that are on campus.
No doubt. I really cannot see these today. Not good. Maybe I need to go see Enjoy Vision.
I got it. Okay. Who do you think will break out that would surprise everyone, and who do you think might not have as good a year as expected on the team?
Okay. Who's going to break out that maybe nobody's talking about? I mean, I think that the immediate thought, for me at least, actually, I'll hear from you guys first. Lewis Carter's kind of like the guy that I think everybody's starting to build up a little bit.
I just don't know where he's going to get on the field.
That's the problem. Like, is it realistic that he's going to be able to give those opportunities to himself? Because is he going to be able to get on the field in front of, I think what we would probably all agree is the most full unit just in terms of the linebacker position?
Yeah, I like Lewis Carter a lot. I just still think he's a year away because, again, I mean, you're not going to play him over Danny. You're not going to play him over Kip. You're not going to play him over Kobe. You're probably not going to play him over Kanik. Like, it's a deep room. The one that I think no one's talking about, and I caught some shit for it in the mailbag a few weeks ago when I put him on my 2 deep, is Jacoby Johnson.
Yeah.
I think there's a chance. I'm not saying he's going to start game 1, but if you look up at the end of the season and he's starting for OU, it would not shock me.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's going to get in the rotation. I think he's a freak athlete. I think he's somebody that
I would go as far to say anybody on the defense that we'll just say hasn't started a game right now. If you had to point at somebody and say that guy's going to play in the NFL one day, it might be Jacoby for me. I would have to really get into semantics. Like, are you really saying that like PJ Adebore or somebody's not going to be that guy?
Yeah,
I might be more comfortable saying that it could be Jacoby Johnson. I think people are extremely high on him.
As they should be. I know Josh has always talked about how elite of an athlete he is.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a basketball player first that's kind of transitioned to football a little bit. So he's just going to take some time to learn some technique. And so I think that's a really good pick. I think he's definitely not forgotten, but I think just because he may have not had the last 6 games that we expected, but I think PJ is going to be really good this year. He's definitely not forgotten. He's definitely a high level, high talent, high expected guy out of the fans. But I think people were kind of, I'm not disappointed, but, they may have expected a little bit more production. I mean, they expected a lot more production as the offensive line as a whole. I mean, defensive line as a whole. But I think he's going to go in and get 4.5, 5 sacks this year. And so I think he's going to take that next step. Another year under his strength and conditioning is going to do very well for him. And so I think people aren't really he's not being talked about to the level he was last year at this time.
I think it's kind of a given that like Kip Lewis is ready to be that next breakout star. And maybe it's just because I really like him just as a person. I don't think we're done with Jaren Cannon.
No.
He's going. It's going to be really interesting. Like when you talk about guys that are going into a big spring in terms of development and taking that next step, he might be kind of one of those guys for me as well.
I also think, and you saw them do this a little bit in the bowl game, they're going to play more 3 down front, I think. And when they do that, they bring in 3 linebackers. And I think that knowing Brent, he wants to get his best players, his best athletes on the field. And I wouldn't be shocked if there's lineups where you've got Danny, Kip, and Jaron all in the game at the same time, or maybe even throw Kobe into that mix as well. And I think Jaron, look, you saw the step that Danny made in year 2 under Brent. I wonder if Kanik can kind of make that same type of leap, or at least to a leap where they trust him more to play more minutes. Because I think down the stretch, it just got to a point where Kip was just so good that they had to play him, and Kanik just wasn't as good at times. So that's going to be really interesting. I was going to answer the second part of this. I hate to say that somebody's not going to be good next year, but the one that I'm just kind of skeptical on is Dasan McCullough. And it's because we just didn't he didn't have the impact that I think any of us thought he was going to have. And I think part of that is he's playing a position that's very difficult. They asked him to do some things that I just don't think he's very good at, which is covering in space and those sorts of things. When they had him rushing, or they had him, on the line and playing either rush defense or going after the quarterback, he was really good. Made some really good plays, or when they threw those bubble screens, he was really good at that. But he's one guy that I'm just very skeptical going into that. The other one too, I would say, is Troy Everett. I just haven't seen enough from him.
I was going to say, is there anybody on the offensive side of the football that we're just...
And I think part of that's also, I think Josh Bates is going to be really good, and it would not shock me if Josh Bates pushes for that starting job at center, and Troy Everett is not even a guy that we're hearing about.
I can hear Josh screaming in the back right now. What about Eugene Brooks? I know that there's a lot of hype with him coming in, and especially off the performance that he had in Orlando at the Under Armour game.
I think he transitions really well. I think you got to understand there is a difference between a high ceiling guy and kind of I'm not saying he's a low floor guy, but a guy who can play tomorrow. And so that's why I know you guys have talked about Jaden Jackson might be a guy that's more ample to play week 1, maybe than the defensive linemen that are coming in. And so I'm not saying they're not going to play well this year, but I think sometimes and at some point fans are kind of expecting too much out of those really high level defensive linemen that are coming in to step in and play right away. And so I think they're going to be really good down the line. I think they are going to need their help at some point over the season, but at what point, or how much are you expecting them to be down after down guys?
Sure.
I think Jane Jackson. Kerry said Jane Jackson, but I think he's going to be really good. Like I said, I think he transitions well.
So they bring back Lacey. They bring back Terry. They're obviously going to be in the rotation. They had a 5-man rotation this last year. Where are the other 3 spots? I think David Stone could be in there. I think Jaden Jackson could end up in there. Grayson Halton's back.
I was going to say, we always,
about.
When you're talking about defensive line, we always talk about DJ Terry and Jacob Lacey, and rightfully so. They're probably going to be penciled in as your your incumbent starters coming back. We talk about the freshmen. We never talk about the Ashton Sanders, Grayson Halton, the guys that have been around, Marcus Strong.
Yeah,
we never talk about the guys that are currently on the team that are expected to probably make that jump, maybe even more so than the freshmen.
I think Grayson Halton's a guy that honestly probably should have got more snaps last year. And he did early in the year, and then it kind of just became like a rotation with really those seniors.
It's an interesting conversation to have. And, you can look at the wide receiver position, and I don't know if you really had to tell me that I had to pick one of the guys. It kind of sounds bad, and I know he's coming back, and it might be the same kind of situation that maybe somebody like a Woody Washington has if Jacoby Johnson or somebody from that quarterback group comes together or steps up. I just don't know what to expect from Jalil Farouk just in terms of, are you going to move him inside? Is he going to be a little bit more comfortable? That brings up the question about the ball security that he had the issues with, for the most part.
How much is the doubt just because of the last game, though? I think we've talked about, we've kind of seen a ceiling. I think we have.
But we walked out of the Cotton Bowl thinking that's the best performance that he's had in an Oklahoma uniform. And then it just never seemed like he was able to capitalize off of those gains.
Yeah, he really took over the game. And I think a lot of people forget about it just because of the final drive, because that's what kind of overshadows everything. But he had a phenomenal game. Definitely the best game, like we talked about as a Sooner. But is he going to take a step back? I don't know. But I would be shocked if he's under 400 yards next year. I think he's going to be a really solid guy. But ball security is an issue. We obviously saw that in the Alamo Bowl. But I think any other guy that we're kind of expecting, maybe not to take a step back, but maybe his role is diminished a little bit, with some of these guys that they brought in?
I mean, running back's going to be interesting.
Running back's interesting, but I don't even know if we can take a guess at it just because of the weirdness that went into this year.
I mean, Sawchuk's the guy.
If you can answer me what happened to Javonte Barnes in 2023, I can start talking about the running back room a little bit more.
Yeah.
It says something that he's still on the team, though. I really do. I think nobody would have been surprised if he popped in the portal at any point. And
there were a couple weeks where you just kind of expected it. But then, and I think that was more so during the middle of the season as opposed to the end of the season.
Correct. And there's still an opportunity for him to hop in the portal in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
But that wouldn't shock me, not that I know anything, but saying that we don't know what to expect with him, but he looked like the better of the two guys, primarily in their true freshman season. I mean, we didn't get to see a lot of Sawchuk, but is he a guy that they can count on? I think he's the difference maker. I think him, as a change of pace back, I think they got, this Franklin kid that they brought in. I think that is like a question mark. I'm not worried.
Yeah. Live stream here. Leslie wants to know, have y'all addressed Moser rumors? And we have not. I think that what you're referencing is there is some scuttlebutt out there on the interwebs that maybe Porter Moser has some interest in the DePaul job. Being from Chicago, everybody knows the roots or the connections back into Chicago. It makes sense, sure, because he's from Chicago. It's kind of like we talked about off air. Moving from DePaul from Oklahoma doesn't seem like something that, just in terms of, if you want to just start at the top level, like athletic department wise, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Correct. And that's the part that, like you said, maybe it makes sense because of the Chicago roots and maybe wanting to get closer to home, but DePaul's a program that hasn't made the NCAA tournament since 2004. It's not like they've exactly been a bunch of world beaters, and I get it. They play in the Big East, which is a big conference, but you have a lot going on at Oklahoma, and all of a sudden this year is third year BC, which is a lot less it's not less competitive, but it's probably a little bit easier conference than the Big 12. You could probably have some.
Is it an easier
real
conference than the Big East? Can you have more success in the Big East at DePaul than you could have?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think Oklahoma, I think that here, and I said this to you earlier, Eddie, if you're Porter Moser, how old is he?
55.
He's 55 years old. He probably wants to coach, 10 more years. That's not a huge window when you really think about it. And where do you have a better chance at winning a national championship? And to me, I think that's very clearly at Oklahoma. I just don't think DePaul's a program where you can make a realistic run. And I say that as, I knowing that he made it to the Final Four with Loyola Chicago. The guy can clearly coach. I just don't. I don't know. It doesn't add up a lot to me. But again, I haven't heard anything. If anybody's wondering, I've not heard anything.
To answer the question in full, yes, there is some rumors out there. I can, if you wanted to speculate, I can get down the road where maybe the family wants to get back closer to Chicago. It seems like almost like a little bit of an inconvenient time that this job comes open. Like if this thing would have come open a year ago.
But didn't we kind of have the same parallel situation with Notre Dame last year?
Sure.
I think maybe there might be a little bit more smoke to this one.
And I just don't know if like Notre Dame, I think that they had decided early in the process that they wanted to go get Micah Shrewsbury from Penn State. But at the same time, it's a very interesting question. If it was any other school but the one in Chicago, I think everybody would say, no, this is nothing to it.
Insider who hides behind a burner, but he's really good. But he told today, or he speculated today, that there has been some conversations, is what he implied, at least, between some camp, the varying levels. But I don't know. I kind of, just as like an OU fan, maybe Notre Dame would have worried me a little bit more last year, especially the way they finished last year. Maybe he thought this might not be the place for me. But this year, I mean, you're looking different. I know everybody has had their pains, including myself, about how they played last week, but they beat BYU. And the guys that they have on the team, every single starter can come back next year. And it's going to be a dogfight because those guys are going to have a lot of NIL opportunities at other places, tampering, so on, draft opportunities overseas, etc. But the starting five has an opportunity to come back next year. And you think the team's good this year? If they get 4 out of 5 of those guys, they get a couple similar players of Rivaldo Soares and maybe Latrey Darthard and one other guy, see what Hughley does. They could be really good. And going into the SEC next year, they could be looking at like a perennial top 15 team.
I mean, how much better? This is probably a dumb question. How much better is the DePaul job than Loyola Chicago?
I would say
It's
not like much better, but it's definitely, I think, better.
And here's my second question. If DePaul comes to him and they offer him just a lot of money, like I would assume OU can match whatever DePaul is offering.
I think it goes deeper though too, because I know DePaul's had their issues with NIL.
Yeah.
There has been numbers thrown out there that they had like $250,000 total to work for a basketball
They
team.
used it all on Mo Gibson.
They did. That was still the most perplexing thing of all time.
Maybe DePaul's just out to get Oklahoma.
Maybe they are, and this is like the final strike. But
Damn it.
So we'll see. I don't know. I think that more than ever NIL, almost means more than salary.
And who knows? Like if Oklahoma ends up going on some type of, and I'm not even saying a run, just they make the NCAA tournament, maybe they win a game. I don't know. It's like, do you want to leave something that you're building, something that you've obviously been an integral part in? It's just interesting, and with the recruiting classes that he has, the guys that he has coming in, not already on campus, but the guys coming in the 2024 class. The cool guy. He made a big move in the On3 rankings here lately.
I watched some highlights the other day. He looks pretty smooth for a 6'9" guy. He's got a quick shot. He's turning into a playmaker guy who can get it off the bounce. But
you're gonna have to take him to Johnny's a couple times to get him a couple burgers and onion rings.
He's gonna have to get on the Brahms bulking plan.
100%.
Triple cheeseburger, fries, and a shake. We'll get him an NIL deal for that.
No doubt about it. All right, I think this was good. Thank you to everybody for coming in. It's something that I believe that here through the spring and then the summer and maybe into perpetuity, we're going to do and try to do every Thursday night. Join you guys, take all your questions. We'll be rotating in, whether it be Joe or Josh will come in, get a little bit more recruiting questions in there. It should be a lot of fun. So until next time, make sure you check out the Hoops Report with myself and Bob Prisbillo. That's kind of recapping everything that was the BYU game, as well as a preview headed into Bedlam weekend. And we will catch you next time right here on the CenterScoop.com YouTube channel.